Yo guys, what is up? Welcome back to part 4 of this How to Play GLA series. This whole episode this time is going to focus on the difference between the different GLA factions, the advantages and disadvantages, or pros and cons, whatever you want to call it, of the different armies, and also the cost difference between the different armies for the different key units that we're going to be looking at. So here's one I prepared earlier. Here is a price list that I actually used several years ago in a different video. And it basically shows all the different factions across the top, and then all of the different units that you can build along the side, and then a price for each. I'm just going to rule out some of the units that I'm not going to talk about first. For example, like a rebel costs pretty much the same for all of the factions. RPG costs the same all across all the factions. Terrorist costs the same all across the factions. Angry Mob costs the same all across the factions, and so does Jarman Kell. Jarman Kell is a unit, whenever you're building a palace, you always really want to be getting the Jarman Kell. He's so cost efficient. He only costs 1500. He's stealth. He can kill infantry. He can snipe vehicles, and pretty much as soon as he's killed a few infantry and he's killed a tank and done a little bit of scouting, he's pretty much already paid for himself. So it's always a unit worth getting, especially if it's going the longer bunkery way, but it's also good for like stealing a dozer, anything like that. The few differences between some of the units. So for example, the rebel, Tox, okay, it's $50 more expensive than vanilla and demo, but with Tox you can it fires the toxin from the rifle rather than bullets like in the rest of them. So what that can do is actually clear out garrisoned garrisoned units in buildings. So for example, you come across a bunker that's loaded with RPGs, you send one Tox rebel to it, you can clear it out. That's the advantage of that one. Stealth, you have stealth rebels as well as standard, whereas vanilla you can upgrade the stealth upgrade from the palace, which is generally probably not that worth it. RPG and terrorist both cost the same across all the factions. We've got Toxin with the terrorist. Actually, what it does is it causes a little bit more damage, as does the demo one, but the Toxin one also leaves some kind of toxin remain there as well. And the thing you've got to be careful about with terrorists is when you are detonating a building, if you attack all the terrorists in the same spot, then the toxin that remains kind of stacks up, or I don't know what it does actually, it just bugs out and it kills the nearby terrorists. So the toxin, when you're doing terror attacks, you have to be very, very careful and spread your terrorists around, which we'll come on to in a second. Maybe I'll show you later in this video. Hijack is very, very useful for stealth. Stealth does not get any tanks. He does not get scorpions. He does not get marauders, and he does not get scud launchers as well. Does not also get yeah, sorry, I've already said scorpions. So stealth can pretty much only make quads, which luckily for stealth, it has cheap quads in comparison to like demo and tox. But where it can make up for that and not having the tanks, it can use with hijackers. So for example, if you're ever against tank, it's highly likely that you're going to need some hijackers versus a pro player. So you're going to be wanting to take out like outposts, anything that detects stealth like a Lotus and stuff like that, and using those hijackers to capture tanks, gats and stuff like that. For GLA vanilla, generally you don't really want to be making hijackers. I very rarely see it being used. So hijacker, that's the speciality of stealth. So you get no tanks, but instead you're going to get a hijacker that's stealthed whilst moving, so you can run all the way around and capture those and stuff like that. Booby trap is for detonating, placing a demo trap or a booby trap on a building that can be captured by the enemy. So you would normally, when you build that's the upgrade for GLA vanilla. You're going to build one rebel, you get that upgrade, and then it allows the rebel to place a booby trap on a capturable building. So let's say you have an oil, you place the booby trap on the oil. When the enemy comes to capture it with a ranger or another rebel or red guard or anything, there will be an explosion and it will kill the surrounding units and they won't be able to capture it. Saboteur, rarely do you see this, but it's good for stealth really, because they I think they're stealth while standing and not whilst moving. I think that's the case. Might be stealth the whole time, I can't remember actually. But they're quite a rare unit to be using. Generally you want to use it to like reset super weapon timers. We've got Angry Mob, costs the same across all the factions, very useful, and causes a huge amount of DPS. If you get one of them in the enemy base, you're going to be tearing through enemy buildings very, very quick. Okay, Demo Trap. Now, here's where you want to be demo. So you notice actually, I'll talk about first. Demo Scorpions cost 650. Okay, it's the same as Tox, but it's slightly more than vanilla. But whereas Toxes are more expensive, Tox actually gets the Toxin shells for free. So what I mean by that is the Scorpions from GLA Tox. So this unit here can actually fire Toxin shells, so it's good for killing infantry as well. So generally, if you're ever Tox, it's probably the strongest of the GLAs to be, because of those Scorpions. Once you get the Scorpion rocket upgrade, they can kill infantry, they can kill tanks, they can kill buildings so quick. That's why Toxin is one of the strongest. Not to mention that it's super strong Toxin tunnel. So whereas this GLA tunnel here has a machine gun on the top, and that's good for killing infantry and good for causing a little tiny bit of damage to these units. The Toxin tunnel will have the Toxin kind of shooter thing, whatever you want to call it, gun shooter, Toxin cannon or whatever, and it's amazing for killing tanks, it's amazing for killing infantry. It's so powerful. So that's why Tox is probably considered the strongest. So you can imagine actually when you're Tox and you're fighting against Stealth who has no tanks, even with the hijacker, Tox has a really good chance against Stealth. So Stealth really wants to be hanging out for the long game if you're playing Tox against Stealth. But what I was getting to is Demo's Scorpions are 650 a piece, and that's the same as Toxin, but they don't get the Toxin shells. So they've got more expensive tanks than like GLA Vanilla, but they don't have any advantage. They're just more expensive, as are the quads, as I mentioned before, and they're also more expensive. So Demo is at a disadvantage because of its tanks and quads are more expensive, but they don't gain any advantages, whereas Tox has more expensive Scorpions and quads, but at least the Scorpions kill everything on the map. They're absolutely insane. Radar van, not even worth talking about really, a little bit of price difference. Toxin tractor, weirdly Toxin tractor more expensive for Tox, didn't even realize that really, but they're really good for clearing out the middle buildings on Tournament Desert. An underused unit that you'll often see players like Size who will make it as like his first or second unit in order to clear out the middle on Tournament Desert. You usually make it like a technical first, or maybe even sometimes a Toxin tractor first, but a very underused unit, very good for clearing out the middle buildings, or any building rather than like fighting it with like full-on aggression and losing some units to RPGs and whatever. Marauder is an interesting one. So you get the Marauder by going to over here, and you know I always say get this one. Well, if you're not going to get that one, you want to probably get this one. If you're against maybe Nuke, or if you're against Tank, maybe China, I'm not 100% sure. But once you get this, it allows you to then build it. The problem with this is, though, you see how long that is taking to build. It's an extremely long build time, and it's an expensive unit at 800. It's 200 more expensive than the Scorpion. It probably will win it in a 1v1 versus the Scorpion, so it's more powerful. But you see this insane build time. Absolutely crazy. Now compare that to the Scorpion. Look how much faster that Scorpion is going. So that's why I don't really recommend building Marauder tanks, because it takes so long. You have very few units out. By the time the enemy's got a few Battle Masters in your base, let's say he's Nuke or something, you're only going to have probably 2 of these out maximum. Maybe even have Nuke Battle Masters already in your supply line. It's like it takes so long to build, you can have very few units out. So you need to be very smart where you use these and when you use them. You generally only want to build 2 or 3 max. And when you do get them, you want to make sure that you pick up the scrap that's left over from units. It's not going to leave scrap because you can't force fire your own stuff. Causes immense damage to tanks. But basically, when a unit dies, you want to scrap it up. It makes the cannon bigger the first time, but if you scrap it up twice, it gets a double cannon. And when it gets a double cannon, and also it gets a bit of veterancy on it, then it absolutely wrecks everything. It's one of the most broken units in the game when you let it scrap up. But before that, it isn't all too powerful, except against like stopping flamers and stuff like that for some of the Chinas. So yeah, that's the Marauder. Also, you get the Toxin shells. You see that where my mouse cursor is right now. You get the Toxin shells free with that for Toxin. So also good for killing infantry. Bike, pretty much the same worth for them all. It's really good for capturing oils at a very long distance. So for example, let's say I get the capture upgrade, rather than sending the Rebel all the way over the map, like over here, you can get this arms dealer, select over there, build the bike. You see it builds insanely quick, a lot faster than that Marauder did. and that's one of the fastest units, maybe even the fastest ground unit. I think it's the fastest ground unit. Fastest ground unit in the entire game. I think it's even faster than Technicals, maybe. I think it is faster than Technicals. But yeah, you see how fast that is compared to that Rebel?
Upgrade complete.
And my capture upgrade is ready. Gonna go all the way over here. So let's say like in DEFCON, let's say you're playing 3v3 or 2v2v2, something like that. There's the demo trap, by the way, the booby trap. Yeah, let's say you were playing DEFCON or something. It's really good for going to capture the enemy oils. You can send them quick when you take over their base. So yeah, that's the bikes. Technicals, one of the best units in the entire game. Whether you're fighting GLA, whether you're fighting USA, whether you're fighting China, generally you're always going to make at least one technical. If you're against USA's, your whole army is probably going to be just loads of technicals. But really, if you invested in a Marauder, I really don't recommend building them. You have to make the decision. Are you going to be going Marauders or are you going to be going Technicals? If you're making Technicals without the veterancy, then it's just suicide. You're gonna die to a bunch of Vs. They perform so much better versus Vs with the veterancy. For example, the 1v1 and a V, a Technical versus a V, without the TOV missile upgrade, then with the veterancy, the Technical will win the engagement. But I think without it, I think it loses, or it's very, very close. I think it does lose it, actually. So yes, the difference between winning a 1v1 engagement or not. So it's very, very important you choose whether you go Marauders or Technicals. You can still make maybe one Technical if you're just going to maybe do a Terror Tech and then switch into Fast Palace or something like that. But generally, you don't want to be spamming them unless you've got that veterancy upgrade, like I say every time. Quads for all of the factions, very, very price similar, but they are more expensive Demo and Tox, and when that's one of your most common units, that $50 does add up. So you don't want to be spending too much time investing with Demo and Tox into quads. As I said, whenever you're Demo or Tox versus air, and you're going to be likely against Comanches, that's probably one of your weaker times in 0 Hour as one of the GLAs. Scud Launcher is also purchased from the promotions page. And here you basically just click on that. You'll be able to build it here once you've got a palace, and they're a very good rangy unit. Very good in like DEFCON games. Also good in bunkery 1v1 games, although you don't see them that much. And generally, I like to be a bit more mobile and more aggressive using my buggies rather than sitting back. It's kind of like bunkery players, but although they are a used unit, just not all too much. They are good in some GLA mirrors. Buggies is a very important one that I haven't got to yet. So for Stealth and GLA Vanilla, they're very cheap at 900 a piece. And this is one of Stealth's main strong points. So the buggies are only 900 each, and they can go in also inside of all the stealth tunnels. So for example, if you're stealthed, if you are stealth, you can stealth all of your buildings on the map, but your tunnels are stealthed as standard. Whereas for GLA Vanilla, you can upgrade it, but it costs you $500. What you want to be doing with these stealth tunnels, you want to be filling them full of buggies and sniping, popping them out, sniping off enemy units, whether it be Vs or whether it be Inferno Cannons or absolutely anything, and then going back inside the safety of your stealth tunnel. Very, very strong, and that's probably the main strength of Stealth. Not to mention, like, you can stealth your super weapons and your black markets and all that kind of stuff. So the next thing I want to talk about is Bomb Truck. Very rarely used unit. I'm not going to spend too much talking about that. You can get it from here, although generally the enemy spots it before it gets to his army. A pro player is going to spot that. Although you can have a play around with it if you want. There is ways you can disguise it as like an enemy drone, for example, and it becomes really, really small, and you can sometimes sneak up on an enemy and cause it. If you ever cause massive damage with a bomb trap and have an epic replay using it, feel free to send it me and I will definitely cast it, because there's lacking replays with epic bomb truck usage. Battle Burst is another really key unit, but not as key as like buggies and scorpions and stuff like that. For Stealth and GLA Vanilla, they're very, very cheap. Another really good thing for Stealth is you can have you've got cheap buses, but then you can go inside of the tunnels, pop out, cause some damage, then go back in the safety of your tunnel. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. The main issues, the main thing you want to be pulling out here is the quad price. You want to be looking at the Scorpion price, and yeah, they're the two main things. Technicals also, actually, I forgot to mention that, $600 for demo. So if you're against USA and you're producing $600 units that are way more expensive, $100, or do you want to call it 20% more expensive for demo than the other factions, that's going to be when it's hard, and that's going to be the faction when you want to be doing more terror techs with demo rather than taking on head-on engagements. Massive advantage for demo that I didn't cover was when you get to Palace, you're able to upgrade to the Demolitions upgrade, and with the Demolitions upgrade, you can build bikes and they then self-detonate, as do bikes do self-detonate, whereas other units you have to click the little icon that's down here. But bikes are really, really good and overpowered. Also, the Rebel Ambush for both demo and Tox is really strong. The Rebel Ambush for demo, you generally want to be putting that on top of an army, pressing the I key on the Rebels straight away so they detonate. And with Tox, they're just they carry the Toxin gun, as I said before. And when you get like the 16 or even just 8 Rebels with the upgrade you can get from the Palace, they're very, very, very strong. The upgrade you can get from the Palace is the Gamma Toxin upgrade, and it costs, I think it's like 100% or 50% more damage, or maybe even 150%. I think it's 50% extra damage for the Toxin upgrade, for the Toxin units and tunnels. So yeah, so they cause a lot more damage. One really good strategy you want to be doing is using the Jom and Kel to pick off really key units, and then using the Rebel Ambush on top of it to steal like an Overlord or something like that. Because you only have to put a Rebel inside of an Overlord and it takes it over. So yeah, sorry guys, this was a lot more talking, but you need to understand the advantages and the price differences between the GLAs before we move on and get into the more pro stuff. So I know there's a lot of talking, but hopefully this table is really, really useful for you. You understand the different advantages of the different armies. GLA Vanilla really is just good all round because it's got cheap units and it can build everything. Stealth, generally you want to be sitting back and getting a palace and building markets and stuff like that, although it is very good against some of the USAs. But it's really hard to take on a head-on engagement as stealth versus the other GLAs because of the lack of tanks. Tox is just the best, just absolutely annihilates everything because of the strong tunnels. And demo is kind of weak early on because of the more expensive stuff, but as soon as you get like the demo upgrade, like the demo traps are also really good. Anything that explodes for demo is really, really good, and you generally want to be holding out for the longer game until you've got your more overpowered stuff, especially like bikes. One bike costing 550 gets into the middle of a group of these, explodes them all, and then it's pretty much GG from there. It's just managing to get to that point first. So yeah, GG. I know there wasn't a lot of gameplay on this one, but there will be a gameplay in the next for sure. So GG, cheers for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.